Your passport, you can actually get a U.S. passport either as a U.S. citizen or not.
What?
Yes, you can actually get your U.S. passport. If you, does anybody have a passport book on them with them by any chance? No? Okay. Well, I go home, open up your passport book, and look at your picture on one side, and on the other is a paragraph, and it recognizes two classes, two political classes, one of that of a citizen and one of that as a national. The Department of State recognizes two classes here in this country that can lawfully live here. So I decided to go down this journey. What does it mean to be an American state national? And I'm going to give you sort of a short synopsis, because there's a fraud that has been perpetrated on this country really almost since the beginning. And it's continuing today, and the corporatocracy, the corporations that have just merged with our government and have perpetrated massive crimes against humanity that we're all still living through. COVID was a giant scam. People did die, but let's be honest, the flu disappeared those 2 years. People die from the flu every year. There's nothing new here. We know that children survive COVID. We know that children survive the flu. But the flu still takes people. Coronavirus it's in this room, by the way. There's coronavirus in here. There's 2 trillion viruses in this room right now. So, are we scared? Are we running out? Are we masking up? No. God gave you a perfect immune system, and we can defeat it. Unfortunately, we're dealing with so much other external stuff, air, food, water, that's poisonous to us. It weakens our immune system. So we have to educate ourselves on what's really helpful to us, but we need to start from the beginning with how they stole this country, how they stole your freedom, how they stole your sovereignty. And it goes back to the 14th Amendment. So let's talk about this. Let's go back to 1812, right? The British came back, they were pissed. Damn, we lost those colonies. Damn, that country's rich. Boy, they have a lot of resources. Look how much fun they're having. This is not right. We want them back under the crown. They tried to destroy the documents that our founding fathers crafted, that beautiful parchment paper. They burned down the White House. They did a lot of damage in 1812, but we won. We kicked their butts right out. Now we have some debt. Again, we had debt from the Revolutionary War. We had debt from the War of 1812. You know, the North wanted the South to pay their fair share, and the South was like, no. We went to war again. Yeah, slavery was an issue, but there was more to it. Okay? In 1819, the 13th Amendment was drafted, and it was agreed upon. Do you know what the original 13th Amendment was about, Darlene?
That no one with a title of honor can serve in our Congress.
Title of nobility, correct. So title of nobility, the reason the original 13th Amendment was drafted after the War of 1812 was because we didn't want kings, queens, squires running our country. They came back to try and steal it from us, and we said, no thank you. In 1819, that's what passed. No titles of nobility shall serve. There's 19 copies of the original 13th Amendment that have been codified into parchments all over this country. That got buried because of the Civil War. And it resurfaced again in 1865 when they rewrote the 13th Amendment and made it about involuntary servitude, slavery. Okay? That's the first big lie. The second big lie was 3 years later in 1868, the 14th Amendment was drafted, and they tried to shove it down everybody's throats. 41% of the states said, we don't want this. 2 actually held out. New Jersey and Ohio said, God, no, we don't want to be part of the United States. We don't want to lose our freedom as Virginians, New Jerseyans, Ohioans, New Hampshireans, whatever. They didn't want to change their title. They didn't want to change their status. They wanted to remain a union of states where we were independent nation states trading amongst ourselves. Everything was great. We were Americans. Were we not Americans from 1776 till 1868? We were Americans. In 1868, they forced the United States citizenship status on everybody. Unconstitutionally, by the way, because it was done under duress. That's a fraud. And that was proven in 1878, United States versus Throckmorton. Fraud vitiates everything. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. So now we're U.S. citizens in 1868, but 3 years later, the USDC, the United States District of Columbia, was formed and incorporated, a federal corporation, that's right, governed by a legislative democracy. Meanwhile, America was a constitutional republic. So you see, we had 2 different governments going on in this country. But that same year that they incorporated the U.S., the Bar Association was also formed. Now, we all know that the Bar Association is really responsible for most evil in this country.
Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
They're just a dudes, they're nothing more than Teamsters, except they have titles of nobility. What do we have running around Capitol Hill right now?
Lots of attorneys.
Lots of attorneys, lots of titles of nobility, lots of esquires. And the corporation, the corporate shield, the corporate construct was born. The attorneys have been behind it all. And I know some great attorneys who agree with me. One of them is Todd Callender, Tom Renz. They both agree. You should do what Ann did. You should opt out of this crazy system. Because what has happened with the corporation and the incorporation of everything, the federal government, then all of the states became subchapters, your municipalities, your counties, all of it down the line. They've all incorporated. So those de jure constitutional seats of government were abandoned for working for the corporation. Your police officers, I know there's great police officers. We respect our law and order like President Trump says, but there's a lot that just work for the corporation. They work for the municipal, they're policy enforcers. They're not following the Constitution. So what's happened with this incorporation, with the federal government being a legislative democracy, it is governed as an administrative agency. And we have now seen in 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed the Federal Register Act, which is what started and created all these agencies. Now, you want to understand how you interact with this corporation? Well, free people don't contract with corporations. The government had to make sure they could turn you into chattel, and to do that, they had to incorporate you, turn you into your own corporation. In 1907, the birth certificate was passed, the act, and through that, and Social Security, when you're born, your parents just sign you up. They don't know that they're signing you into corporate debt slavery. They don't know that they've monetized you, turned you into chattel for the government. That's the only way the government can truly enslave you, is through mandates and through contracting with your corporate vessel. So while you, the free man, with your first and last name, uppercase, lowercase, you believe you exist, what the corporation has done, what the federal government, the corporation of the federal government has done, is they've contracted and turned you into a vessel, a corporate shield of yourself with your all caps name. Look at your drivers, your Social Security, your passport, your bank statements. Anything that's titled in your name is always all caps. That's the corporate construct. They need that in order to control you, and you believe that's really you, but that's not you, that's your corporate you. So there's two yous out there. There's two of you out there. One is a corporate fiction, and one is the real living man or woman. What I did is I removed this fiction, I took control of it, and I took control of all jurists of my law, because the original law book on the planet, from which our founding fathers invoked our Creator's name 4 times, is the Bible. Your basic instructions before leaving Earth, right? And this man right here can talk a lot about that. So God gave us dominion over the earth, right? Your water, your air, your land. The devil, of course, sees everything in mirror. That's your LAW, your law. So you see, what's legal is not lawful. What's lawful is not legal. The Constitution is the highest law of the land. It comes and it's ordained by God. God made man. We drafted that Constitution. Man created government. And through government, we create corporations. Right? You have to go to the Secretary of State if you want to create a corporation, an LLC or a partnership, right? Yep. So this is the hierarchy. And these corporations, the federal government and all the corporations, they are governed under administrative law. Not our law. Our law is the Constitution up here. And what's happening, why you see Kerry Lake and others that have lost election lawsuit after election lawsuit. Well, of course, they have attorneys who love getting paid, and if you keep finding a never-ending battle, you're just on the payroll. No disrespect. But most of the attorneys don't understand what's happened. They're fighting down here on administrative level when they need to be fighting up here on the constitutional law level. They need to be fighting on those grounds. But here's the other problem. These federal judges, they've all come up through the system, through the Bar Association. That's the Old Boys and Girls Network. They have no incentive to stand on this law of the land. They have every incentive to drag you down here and fight down here, because you can't win. Who can memorize millions of pages of codes and statutes? The Constitution's just a couple of pages. So you see how they're constantly confusing and confounding and enslaving. This is what we need to better understand. We need to understand that we can be free. We don't need to be part of a corporation that is engaging in endless wars, printing trillions of dollars with their international banking cabal that runs a Federal Reserve, which is not federal. There's no money in it. I mean, we are going to see some seriously wild things happen. Do I say it's scary? Well, it's scary if you don't understand what's going on, but if you're prepared. How many of you are actually doing what Andy was talking about, getting gold and silver just to have money, real money? If you're not, start buying some. Whatever you can spare, start doing that. because this fake money that the bankers have been printing for a long time, it is a shell game, and the jig is up. Time has run out, and they know it, which is why we're seeing them act crazier and crazier and crazier, because more and more people are waking up to this fake corporate shield. The reason people incorporate to begin with, how many of you are sole proprietors and have an LLC wrapped around you? A lot of people. I've done it. I'm here. Look. And why do you do that? To protect yourself from a lawsuit, right? This is your protection? Well, the government has wrapped themselves up in their corporate shield. You wonder why these treasonous bastards don't ever get charged with treason? You know why? Because guess what? None of them, first of all, we've done a FOIA on Biden's regime, the entire cabinet. Not one of them has a solid, verifiable oath of office on file. When you sign up to be a public servant and you get elected, you're supposed to put your hand on the Bible and swear that you will affirm and support, right? You swear or affirm to support the Constitution, defend the Constitution. That's step one. That's 5 U.S.C. 3331. But step two is 5 U.S.C. 3332, where you must write your name on that same paragraph where you're swearing your oath to the Constitution, sign it, swear to it, and have it notarized. Nobody in that Biden regime has that piece of paper on file. How about that? So what do we have running around right now? A bunch of frauds, and that includes Kamala Harris.
Of course.
Right? So we have a bunch of frauds running around with a corporate veil protecting all of Washington, D.C. They didn't need that stupid fence that day. I was there. I saw what happened. Mel came and visited me a couple times in D.C. We saw what happened that day. Can I tell you, I just got back from Aspen. We went up against the Aspen Institute. Who's familiar with the Aspen Institute? So that's another lovely lefty organization, and that's where they had little Davos. You familiar with Davos and the World Economic Forum? They meet regularly, they fly in their corporate jets and force you to drive an electric car. Well, guess what? They brought that show to Aspen this past weekend, 2 weekends ago, when we went out there and went head to head. And we held a big meeting in the park with loudspeakers, and wouldn't you know, a lot of people who weren't invited stuck around because they liked what they were hearing. They were shocked at what they were hearing, in fact. Little Fauci was terrified of us. They took his name off their website knowing that we were coming to Aspen to go head to head with these people.
Good for you.
Little Fauci also found out that yours truly was doing live broadcasting in one room, and he was supposed to be meeting with other mainstream media, friendly for him, in the room next door. He refused. He told that guy, I'm not going in there because she's in there. So we shut them down in a big way, and one of the really important, powerful things that happened was on Thursday, we held a prayer vigil in the park. A lot of people that weren't expecting us to be there, that stuck around to listen to what we had to say, and later, big names I can't reveal, but big names, contacted us saying we had no idea. These are families in Aspen that run big things all over this country. They have lots of stores, that's all I'll say. They were like, holy cow, we had no idea we want to support. I mean, and we're going to go back in September, and Mel's coming with me this time. So we had a prayer in the park, and the interesting thing was we actually prayed to reclaim the ground in Aspen, to take it back from the evil. 2 days later, this is not good, but Jim Crown, are you familiar with the Crown family? He's part of Aspen Institute. He's one of the founders. He's also General Dynamics. He's also on the board for the J.P. Morgan